almost 2 million voters cast their ballots in the early voting period in Georgia. Early voting ended Friday, December 2nd. So then you had Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then election day was Tuesday. Early voting on that Friday, the last day, the deadline for early voting, there were over 350,000 people who cast their ballots early. This is really significant. This changes the entire structure of how elections work and how voters are convinced. And it's right here where Republicans in two different ways have failed to adjust their election strategy. This is actually the real reason why Herschel Walker lost. It's not because Raphael Warnock was a good candidate. He's obviously not. He's basically, at least allegedly, a domestic abuser. He ran over his ex-wife's foot in his car after an argument. He, by all accounts, is a terrible father who would leave his children with a babysitter when he was during these small periods of time when he had visitation rights with them. He wouldn't even spend time with them. He would go traveling about. He's obviously very far leftist. He pretends to be a pastor, yet he supports abortion up to the moment of birth. That's fundamentally anti-biblical. To put it colloquially, he sucks. But Herschel Walker is also not a good candidate, right? He's a good candidate compared to Raphael Warnock, but Herschel Walker had some serious problems, some seriously bad decisions that he made in his life that became public towards the end of the campaign, which I think did impact the outcome. It did impact people's decision whether to vote for him or not, particularly women's votes, because the allegations were that he mistreated women, that he slept around, that he didn't support or provide for children that he had begot with different women. So those things are true. They're not untrue. But is that why Herschel Walker lost? Did that make the difference? Was that the single thing that you can pinpoint as being the deciding factor in why he lost? I don't think so. And I know Democrats are trying to make this about Donald Trump. They're saying, listen, Donald Trump threw his weight behind Herschel Walker and still Herschel Walker didn't lose. This is because Raphael Warnock made all of his campaign ads about Herschel Walker's ties to Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is so unpopular that this caused voters not to vote for Herschel Walker. Honestly, I don't think that that's true either. I think that there are a lot of people on both the right and the left who feel that they have some kind of political capital to gain by either giving Trump credit for victories or assigning Trump blame for losses. And I just don't think that Trump's influence was the deciding factor in any of the elections or most of the elections in the midterms. I don't think that Trump made or broke these elections. Certainly not. Maybe we're just talking about this one. Maybe not. Certainly not this one. I don't think that that's true, but this is what the never Trumpers on the right and the left want you to think. They want you to think that Trump is toxic. They want you to think that Trump is not good at picking candidates. That's not why Herschel Walker lost. Herschel Walker lost because Democrats built up the early voting apparatus in the state of Georgia and Republicans didn't. Because this is sort of a continuation of what we talked about yesterday when we talked about the RNC elections and why it's so important that the future RNC chair, hopefully Harmeet Dillon, Lee Zeldin, by the way, decided not to run. So this race will be between Harmeet Dillon and Ronna Romney McDaniel. But it's why it's so important that an RNC chair recognize and acknowledge the reality of the political enemy that we face. Because if we don't acknowledge that reality, we will not fight against this political enemy well. We will not win. We will lose. And this election in Georgia is a perfect example of this because it is ideal to have just election day. Early voting is unfair to voters. It actually disenfranchises voters because it doesn't allow them the opportunity to know all of the information up to voting day. This is not hypothetical. If you go back to 2016, right before the election, James Comey, who was FBI director at the time, basically read that indictment of Hillary Clinton regarding keeping classified information on her homebrew insecure email server, including top secret level information about human sources around the world. This could easily have been hacked by foreign adversaries, probably was, and could have been used against our human sources, could have caused the death of actual people, let alone the national security impacts here in the United States. At the end of this indictment, James Comey said, but even though these are all the reasons you could indict her, we're not going to. After this, the Google searches for "can I change my vote" skyrocketed. because so many people had voted early and cast their ballot for Hillary Clinton in that election. But when they heard this information, the FBI director admitting how corrupt Hillary Clinton was, how dangerous she was, and how just dismissive of the harm that she caused, that she was acting on the campaign trail, people regretted their vote. They wanted to change it. They wanted to take back their vote for Hillary Clinton and switch that to Donald Trump. But they'd already cast their ballots.